Hi everyone, today I want to show you how to make this super quick and easy no-sew crochet pot holder. Apart from the tail that we sew in at the end, there is literally no sewing in the construction of this pot holder. It is all worked in one piece, and one of these takes me less than an hour to make. So for this tutorial you are going to need 50 grams of Aran weight yarn. Cotton preferably, because cotton is really good at resisting heat, which is obviously something you need if you want a working pot holder and not something that's just decorative. You're going to need a 4.5mm crochet hook, and you're going to need a stitch marker. So without further ado, let's get cracking. To start, you want to make a slip knot and chain 43. For the next part of our work, we are going to work along the chain, working just into the top loop of the chain. So if you normally work into both, at this point you just want to work into the top loop of the chain. To start, we want to put 3 single crochet into the second chain along from our hook. Don't forget that this chain here doesn't count, so you want to count 2 down and work 3 single crochet all into the same stitch. And then to mark the beginning of the round, you just want to put a stitch marker into the first of those single crochets. You don't need to put it all the way through, you can just pop it into the front loop of that stitch, and that just helps mark the beginning of our round. Now we want to work along the chain, working 1 single crochet into each of the chain stitches along until we have a total of 40. That should leave you with 1 chain stitch left to work into, and I will meet you back at the end of that chain. When you've worked along and worked 40 single crochet, you should have 1 chain stitch left, and into that last chain stitch, just like we did at the beginning of this side of the round, we are going to work 3 single crochet. Then we want to work all the way back along the opposite side of the chain, working into the loops of the chain that we didn't work into initially, and we want to again work along and work 40 single crochet all the way along, and that should take us round to the beginning of our round. So 1 single crochet into just the loops that we have left from our chain stitch that we worked into the opposite side of up, and we're going to work another 40 single crochet all the way along. Once you've worked the second 40 stitches, you should have a nice long sausage shaped piece of crochet. And to finish off the round, we are going to work into the first stitch. Don't worry if you have a bar here, that's just the way the initial round was worked. Into the first stitch which you have marked, you want to pop a single crochet into just the back loop of the stitch. And for most of the rest of this project, we are going to be working into the back loops only, and we're working in a spiral round and round. So although you can, if you want to, move this stitch marker up every round, it's quite simple to see where the round begins even if you leave this stitch marker in place now. So now we are going to carry on working round and round and round, 1 single crochet into the back loop of every stitch. So when we're working into the back loops, you want to look at the V of your crochet stitch, and instead of putting your hook into the entire stitch, you just want to put it into the back half. By doing this, we create those lovely ridges of texture on the pot holder that just gives it a little bit of extra interest than if we had just worked single crochets. So you want to keep working round and round and round, 1 single crochet into the back loop of each stitch. Don't worry if it starts to curl, we want it to do that. And once your project starts to grow, I will show you what we do next. So go away, work round and round and round until you have about 5 rounds of work, and then I'll show you what hopefully should be happening to your project and what we need to do to take it up to the point that it's the size that we need. Once you've worked a few rounds, you're probably going to find that your work looks something a little bit like this. You're going to have your ends curling in quite drastically, and you're going to have a flat section in the middle. And also, if you've been working into the back loops correctly, you should have these lovely ridges that ideally we would like on the outside of our work. And the way my work is curling at the moment means that if I carried on, they will be on the inside. So what I want to do at this point is just pop these curly bits the opposite way round so that our ridges are facing on the outside. And we can carry on working now without any impact to our work. It just means that as it grows, our project is going to be facing the right way. If you've got your sizing right at the moment, you should have a piece of work that is about 24 centimeters wide. You might want to measure it at this point, because what we want to carry on doing to get to the point that we're ready to join our project together is we want to carry on crocheting until the height of our work is half the width. So you want to measure your work at this point and then carry on working round and round and round until your project is half the height. In my case, this is 23 centimeters wide, so I'm going to go away until my project is 11.5 centimeters tall. At that point, I'll show you what we do to construct our pot holder and to create that nifty little hanging loop, all without having to sew anything together. So go away, carry on crocheting happily until your project is half the height of your width, and I will meet you back and we can then pop our pot holder together and finish everything off. So as you can see, I've now crocheted so that my piece is half as high as it is wide. And this is where we start working just a teeny bit of magic to start putting our project together. So you want to get to your pouch and pull so that what was the beginning of your round is now in the middle, like this. And at this point we can take the stitch marker out, because this beginning of the round is literally just academic at this stage. And you want to line up your two sides and work the two sides so you have two stitches at one end. We can sort this end out later. And what you want to do is mark the first of those two stitches, because this is where we're going to add our hanging loop. So we want to work up to the point where the middle of our work is now going to be. So it's a different point to where it was at the beginning of the round. So you want to mark that stitch and you want to crochet up to that stitch marker, and I will meet you at that point. When you've worked up to your marker, pop a single crochet in the stitch with the marker, and then you want to chain 15. You can adjust the amount of chains that you're working if you want a shorter or a longer hanging loop, but 15 for me is about the right amount for this size of pot holder. Then you want to pop a single crochet into the next stitch along. And what you want to then do is, again, let's take this hook out so we can see a bit better, is reshape your pot holder so that we have that diagonal line across again, and we have the hanging loop at one end. We can take our stitch marker out again now, and what you want to do is you want to work the same thing that you did at this end, so you want to line up two stitches and pop a stitch marker into the right hand side stitch of those two stitches. So this is our midpoint, and what you are going to do now is single crochet into the back loops all the way along until this stitch marker. Okay, so we've worked our last stitch, and now we want to shape our pot holder, and we are going to start our join. So you want to line everything up. Once you've got it all lined up, you want to just have your working yarn on the inside, and you're going to follow a very simple process all the way up. It is a little bit fiddly when you get going, but once you get into your stride, you will find it fairly easy. So you are still working into the back loops only. So the first stitches work slightly differently to the rest. So you want to pop your hook into the back loop of the next stitch and pull up a loop and form a slip stitch. Then you are going to go into the back loop of the next stitch on the right hand side this time, and over into the back loop of the following stitch on the left hand side. Pull up a loop, pull through that first stitch that you've worked into, pull through the second stitch that you've worked into, and then pull it through that final loop to form a slip stitch. Then we're going to alternate which side we start on. So this time we're going to go into the back loop of the left hand side stitch, the back loop of the right hand side stitch, pull up a loop, pull through the first stitch, pull through the second stitch, and then pull through that final loop. Then this next one starts on the right hand side. Pop your hook in to the back loop, come across, pop it into the back loop of the left hand side, yarn over and pull through those 3 loops that you have on your hook. And you want to repeat this all the way along. The first few stitches are the fiddliest. Once you get into your stride, you will be able to quite naturally work along, working your slip stitches all the way up and essentially zippering these 2 sides together. Once you've got a few in, we can discard this stitch marker, we don't need it anymore. So back loop of one side, back loop of the other side, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. It does make it easier if you just slowly do one at a time. And you want to work that process all the way along until you get up to where we made our hanging loop of chain stitches. And you can already see how nice and neat and tidy that join is looking. So I'll go away, finish the rest of this join and meet you back at this end here. So the last few stitches of your join are going to be the ones that are most fiddly, because we have worked all the way along and we have closed up that gap and we've got very little space to work with. So you can see here where I have slip stitched along, we have this lovely flat join, which is why it's worth taking the time to work those back loop slip stitches, because it does give you this beautifully flat join along the middle of your piece. Now, if you prefer not to have a chain stitch hanging loop like me, what you can do is work some single crochets into this space to make this hanging loop a little bit sturdier. So just to give us a little bit more working room, we're going to work a slip stitch into the back of the single crochet from the beginning of that chain space loop. Chain 1 just to give a little bit of wiggle room, and now you want to work single crochets round this hanging loop, about 15 to match the amount of chains that we did, but if you find that you need a few more, just add a few more. It really doesn't matter. So I've worked single crochets all the way around that hanging loop. I'm now going to pop one final single crochet right into the bottom of the stitch that was worked, so not into the loop, because I'm wanting to secure the loop so that it's not too loose and floppy. So into a single crochet within the body of your pot holder, and then just to finish off and secure this, we're going to pop our hook back into our work one more time, pull up a loop, pull through to make a slip stitch, and then break our yarn. Leave a long enough tail so that we can work the end into our project. Pull your tail through and pull tight, and that will tighten that last stitch and secure this hanging loop nice and neatly. And then to finish off, the one bit of sewing, the only bit of sewing that we need to do in this whole project, is just to tidy up this tail. And so I pop my loop just through my work. I run it up through these single crochets that we've just worked. About halfway. Then I go through one of the chain stitches, and then I go back on myself just to tidy things up. You can straighten your single crochets back out again, break your yarn, and just wiggle it to hide that tail in there. And there we have it, a 1 ball double thick no sew pot holder. And this pot holder took me only just over an hour to make, so it's super quick. You can knock these up in such quick time that you can make a whole pile of them for gifts for your friends and family, for any small occasion that you might want to gift them something handmade. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, I would love it if you'd give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again for another tutorial soon. Bye!